Welcome to the session. This is Getting Too Old for This Ship, and I am pleased, proud. I'm going to hit the record button.
I already did.
Oh, you already hit the record button. This session is being recorded, audio recorded. I am pleased and proud to present, without popping my peas, Drew Huning, who runs Melon Camp, Burning Melon, Melon Ballers. They change the name every year, is the problem, but it's all about melons. He also runs Shy Cargo, which has a container delivering from Chicago. And of course, Fixer from Root Pile. You're from Boston?
God, no. North Carolina.
Get someone closer to it. Thank you.
Does that mean start?
Yes, it's you.
Okay.
It's your session. It's not a panel. I'm not moderating. I'm just producing.
Okay. So I'm glad y'all are here. I'm doing the aspects more of like local storage and transport. Local being like more Gerlach, Empire, Pyramid. Regional would be more like Reno, Fernley, if you're keeping your stuff there. Drew brings a 53-foot semi-trailer all the way from Chicago, and he'll tell you more about that. But so he's going to talk more about the long distance aspect of shipping stuff. I'm going to talk about keeping your stuff together closer to Playa and how you get it from there onto the Playa and back to your camp and that kind of thing. So I brought root pile to the Playa first in 2012, and you can show what I brought. This was my first rig. That was packed completely with stuff too, and and Drew did the same. We were doing regionals a few years before that, and so our infrastructure was at home, you know. So as we built our infrastructure for regionals, at that point we were just bringing everything to the Playa and then taking it back, and that only took a couple of years to figure out that was a really stupid plan. So we got storage in Fernley for a couple of years, which actually made it harder because then you had to come here. Like we would drive a big U-Haul out all the way from North Carolina, which is another whole panel, I think. But and then offload what we brought from home, go back to Fernley, load the truck again, come back, unload it. Sometimes we would try to take the truck back and turn it in. A couple of times we couldn't even do that. We ended up paying like $1,600 for the truck to sit there with a bunch of drunk hippies laying in the back. So that's kind of moved us towards keeping stuff in Fernley, and then we started looking into having our own semi. So the first year we got a 23-foot pup, and it worked really nice. It's nice to have your stuff like delivered to your camp, unload it, burn, load it back in, shut the door, lock it, see ya. You know, now some options you have to get to your stuff. You know,
Hey, Fixer, what's a pup?
Pup, I'm going to go through all that in a minute. So so that's kind of what we're going to talk about. What I'm going to talk about is that kind of option. So the next slide this is basically a box truck. So you could use this, obviously, to just transport your own stuff, rent it from home, wherever, or you could buy one and store it somewhere close by and do the same concept of keeping all your stuff in one truck. The next slide this is a 26-foot semi, okay? So this is a dry van, but it's not typically called a dry van, but this is a 26-foot semi, what they would call a pup. I think the next picture shows them putting together. So typically in the Burning Man world, most OSS transport guys don't want to deal with transporting two of those at once. It's just a hassle. It takes a long time to put the dolly under the other one. More for long-term transport, you could transport two. But if you go back one, so this is kind of the starter unit for wanting to keep your stuff local.
Do you still have to register that though?
Register, well, I'll go over that. So that's a 26-foot trailer, and so if you're going to own one of those, it does have to be permitted. It just has to have tags on it. But a lot of trailer tags in California, you can get a permanent tag, and so it's not that much hassle to get a tag on a trailer. It's so much different than any other kind of trailer, really.
And a tag meaning like
pretty
a
easy.
license plate.
Yeah, tag. So it has to be tagged, and to bring it through OSS, it has to be tagged also. You need to have a current tag for OSS to bring it in.
Does it matter if it's a 26-foot trailer or 40-foot?
I'm going to go over that in a minute. So, the thing about a 26-footer, okay, let's go to the next slide. Okay, so a 26-footer is going to cost you, I'm going to use really round numbers here, okay? Somebody may say, well, I bought one for $1,000 or I only paid this. So this is for the uninitiated and just basic info, okay? Basically, you're going to pay $3 to $4 grand for a pup, because there actually sometimes you can find a 53-foot dry van even cheaper, because these are hard to find. But typical pup, you're going to pay $3 to $4 grand. If you want to store it in local area, which would be Gerlach, Empire, Pyramid Way, that out that Pyramid storage out by the lake, you're going to pay about $40-50 a month. Trailer permit didn't go up this year. Is $200 to bring it through point 1 with OSS transport. They did, by the way, raise RV tags to $600 yesterday, they told us. So RV tags coming through point 1 are now $600 just for the tag.
And this tag you're describing, it looks like a bumper sticker.
Yeah.
It's kind of similar to what you see on an art car, but it's something that when OSS brings it in, they put that on your trailer.
Yeah, your OSS transport guy he will need to know what you're bringing in exactly, the trailer tag, he'll have that on his spreadsheet with OSS, and they'll already know that he's bringing that in at some point. When he gets to point 1, he parks, he walks over there and says, okay, I'm bringing this trailer in, give me the Burning Man tag. And he will have already paid $200 for that most of the time. So that's $200. So another thing that's a little bit relevant to this is they raised RV tags to $600, but dry storage is staying at $200. Okay, but also dry lodging units are staying at $200 also. So if you're bringing in, let's just say, a vintage camper through point 1 with an OSS guy, then you pay $200 for that if you take the plumbing out of it. If it has plumbing, it's $600. So the difference is having plumbing in it or not. Or if you took that and built it into 3 or 4 little lodging units, then it would be a $200 tag. But if it had water and it was RV like lodging, then it's going to be $600. Okay, so remember that the $200 is for sure no matter what, right? And then local transport from local storage being like Empire at Blackrock Mini Storage, or Gay and Sunny on that. Their daughter's named Tammy Sparks. She has a lot there too.
They are so sweet.
Yep, they're great. And then out at Stanley Ranch is like 10 miles north. She does storage out there too. But anyway, that's going to cost you between $600 and $800 depending on the transport guy. I don't want to quote any numbers. Is Brad here? But that's basically the range of what you're going to pay. Like $400 each way, more or less, plus the tag. So you're going to be $1,000 more or less to get that in and out. And you're going to be $40 to $50 a month to store it. Now this is with year-round access. Okay? That's with year-round access. Most of those the lots in Empire are gravel lot, gated, locked, fenced. Stanley Ranch is not gated, but she lives right there. And she's not really ready for semis yet. Okay, next. Okay, this is a 53-foot dry van is what they would call it in the business, okay? When people say they have a tractor trailer, this is what they mean. That's the tractor, that's the trailer. That's why they say tractor trailer. So if you ask somebody, do you have a semi, it really doesn't mean anything. Really, you could say that's the whole rig, but to realize that's a semi-trailer, semi-articulated trailer, and this is the tractor that hauls it. That would be more of a long-haul tractor right there. So this is what they would call a 53-foot dry van, okay?
And in this context, dry means not refrigerated. So in
Right.
Burning Man world, your RV can be dry, it has no plumbing, or it has plumbing, but in the semi-trucking world, there's reefers, refrigerated ones that drive frozen foods to Costco, and then there's dry vans. This is a dry van.
So a 53 footer. Now sometimes they're shorter, 46. You find a little bit of variance. This is a basic standard in the industry. Is a 50
Just the
foot.
trailer, not the...
Just a trailer.
Okay.
It's going to cost you about 4 to 6, and you might find one cheaper, but this is just your basic range for budgeting and thinking about it. Okay. Storage is the same. This is important because it's going to cost you the same to store that trailer as the half size as big, or for your 16-foot box trailer. Still going to cost you the same. So, I mean, bigger is better, right? So permit's the same, and transport is the same. So if you're transporting a 26-foot pup, or even like a 20-foot enclosed box trailer, it's going to cost you about the same, because the transport guys, we look at that tractor and we're like, holy shit, look at that big old thing, Those guys, hey, I need to run get some donuts, jump in the truck. They don't see that as any difference. It's just as much work for them to go hook up to that trailer and use that rig to take your stuff in as to take like a 3/4 ton pickup and go pick up your 20-foot box trailer.
Your question over the side.
Also, another resource because we picked ours up, you can find the trailers all the time on auction, and you can get them super cheap.
Yeah, there's
Which
cheaper.
ones?
I'm just putting like the basic prices.
Like
Okay.
Iron
Hold on,
Planet,
wait, one more
Government
question.
Planet.
Just can you talk about cost of maintenance and like anything that breaks?
Yeah, I will.
Because like that's the thing, right?
Yeah, I will. So basically that's, yeah. So basically that is what that's going to cost you. The same price, really, as a dump. Now the difference between like a container is way more expensive to store and to haul and to move. You don't have to tag it. It's on the ground, and you don't have as much maintenance. But the thing is, if you're keeping this trailer in Empire, you don't need that good of tires. You're only going 10 miles. My 53 footers had one flat for 2 years. So, and truck tires are about $200, for like a semi-used truck tire. It's not that bad. And then the brakes kind of like last forever. The way that trailer brakes work is just like, if they're air brakes, and so when you put the air to them, it opens them. So really, there's not much that can mess up there. That's in case the trailer comes off the truck, the air is released, and then the brakes lock, and you can't go. So you would probably figure some maintenance, but we've had ours. What's it costing you to maintain your trailer, Drew?
I'll get to it. But
Okay.
Virtually
Drew,
nothing. And part of the idea is that this is very heavy-duty working stock type equipment. It's very common for a trailer like this to put on 1 million miles with little to no maintenance. It's not like a consumer vehicle that like 100,000, like you're gonna expect some stuff. Like this stuff is made to be moved to haul heavy loads pretty much nonstop. So it's a different class of equipment.
I have more hassle with my smaller trailers keeping them going than the bigger trailers. So.
At what size do you need to get special licensing to drive it?
These are all special licenses.
They are.
These are all CDL, and you need a tractor to move it, and so you're going to pay someone to move that probably.
Could you speak to moving them generally though, because it doesn't cost that much to move a semi-trailer longer distances?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
Well, it does a little bit, but I'm saying there's still an efficiency.
Yeah, I'll talk. Drew's going to talk
And I'll
about
get to that. Yeah, we'll
Drew's
have
going to
some
talk about
numbers and
that.
stuff.
So you were talking about dry trailers versus the ones that have like refrigeration stuff. We have a trailer that used to transport flowers, so it has like refrigeration kind of situation happening, but it's not something that we're using. What category do you think that would fall under?
It would be the same
It's still dry?
for moving it and everything. Yeah.
Okay.
I think
That's
to the driver you could say, yeah, it's got a reefer unit, but
Don't
worry about it.
It's a non-working
You don't have
reefer.
anything in there. They
The only
go, great.
the
I don't
difference
care.
is if they need to be working reefer, then they got to hook it up to the tractor and make sure all that part's working.
So it's more like if we choose to make it a working room?
Yeah.
Okay.
You just need to let your transport guy know, because I'm pretty sure that there's connections to the reefer part from the truck.
Right.
But if you're not using the reefer, it wouldn't matter.
There's a lot more like monitoring that has to go on. If to pre-cool a reefer,
Yeah.
you'll be
yeah,
fine.
yeah.
Okay, thank you.
I guess question for now or probably later. Do Do you have a list of contacts that you could share
Yeah,
about
yeah.
each of these things?
We'll get to that.
Okay.
And that really detailed stuff we'll put in
Yeah,
Google
if
Doc.
it's-
It's
yeah,
not a good-
yeah, yeah.
It's not a good use of this time.
Okay, so
Google
let's-
Doc will be linked to the Potable, so you've all got
Yeah.
the Potable link.
So that's a regular 53-foot trailer. Sometimes it's shorter. This is a 20-foot container. Okay, this is a shipping container, right? So this would be like what the B-Morg system has. This would be a container that you would buy and maybe store somewhere, have someone to move it. It's harder to move once it's on the ground. You can't really. It's harder to move. It is lower to the ground, and you don't have to deal with tags particularly, but you do have to deal with the tag coming through main gate. I mean, 0.1 gate, right? It's the same. So next slide.
That's also the biggest size that heat will move. If you go over 20 feet, heat won't take off.
Who?
Heat, heavy equipment.
Yeah, yeah. So these you can find them cheaper, but I'm giving you basic ideas, 1,800 to 3,000 basically for 20-footer. This is storage of this in Reno. This is just for basic information. Costs you about $150 a month to store that in Reno, where you would have access to it year-round on gravel. You could actually store that in Empire at Tammy's, but then you're gonna have a lot harder time getting it moved. You're not gonna have where you would store it. I'm not gonna drop any names of vendors because they asked me not to, but where you would store it. But you can find this easily, and I'll tell you how to find it. It's about what it's gonna cost. So permit's the same. Transport Reno to Playa, camp and back is about that. So I broke those out, but the reality is that it's $3,000 basically to keep a 20-footer in Reno on a lot where you can get to it year-round, gravel, fenced, access it all year-round. So those two numbers basically add up to about 3,000. So, and that's if you own your own container.
That's with transportation?
That's everything.
Yeah.
About $3,000 to move it from Reno. And if you wanted to keep a container in Empire, it's just way harder. There's not. Willie's about the only guy who can do it, and he does them on a big rollback wrecker trailer. But he's too busy. He doesn't. It's just not.
And just super high level, in case anyone doesn't know, these containers were designed for like overseas shipping to like China. So, you know, the most massive ship that just has these things stacked like 20 tall and 100 long, and so they're very heavy. They're very sturdy. They're meant to withstand the elements. They've got big rubber gaskets. Correspondingly, they are meant to be moved in ports by like giant specialized cranes that move this stuff all day. Moving them around on land, and maybe you get to this later, you know, you can use like a super XL sized forklift.
Yeah.
You can drag it onto like a flatbed with a winch, kind of, sort of, depending.
That's a giant hassle. You don't want to mess with it.
And the 40-foot versions require like a special like picker crane on wheels. This is really heavy-duty specialized equipment.
Yeah.
That is what makes it more difficult to move. If you want to move
Right.
this like it were a semi-trailer, they sit on a thing called a chassis, which is like just like a chopped off semi-trailer with the special like pieces that lock into those corner cubes.
Right.
It's
strapping and everything.
Yeah.
So the bigger ones, this would be a 40-footer. Okay. That's okay. It's more or less. Oh, I'm sorry. Go to the. No, that's okay. Let's skip that and go back to that. Here's a 40-footer, basically, and let's look at the data there. So 40-footer is going to cost you a little bit more. The same thing. You store that in Reno at a OSS burner facility, OSS transport guy. Permit's the same, and the transport is more because they can put 2 pups on a truck, but they can only put 1 trailer. And these people actually have the proper trailers for moving containers, not just jacking it up on a flatbed with pipes under it or something like that. So that's about that. Mm-hmm.
So you mentioned these are built for like shipping overseas. I mean, in Alameda, they're a specialized facility for this. Is there like storage in Alameda that you can rent there, or
At the
There
port?
is storage,
Yeah.
but it'll cost you so much.
Yeah,
to
super
move.
expensive. Yeah, to move it. Yeah.
oh right.
So this would be a 40-footer. Same basic thing. It's going to cost you about $6,000 to keep your container in Reno and get it back year round, whole year, and get it back and forth to your camp. And they're going to drop it right at your camp. They're going to drop it exactly where you tell it to. They're not going to drop it until you're there. But typically what they do, what all of OSS Transport do, is a big staging lot on Playa called McKinley Park. And it's a big place where all the transport guys can start bringing in. They changed it this year. It was, I think, Friday morning. Now they changed it to, I think, they only let those guys do stuff during daylight hours, by the way. So now they're starting on Thursday to let the transport guys bring stuff into McKinley Park. So like they might stage a bunch of trailers in Gerlach, just start bringing them in and parking them in McKinley Park. And then they might have another truck on Playa for taking them to another whole set of crew for moving them to your camp. But your stuff is going to be sitting at McKinley Park pretty much until Monday morning, best case. So if you came in, Sunday at midnight and needed to get in your container, you could, or your trailer or whatever. It's the same. Actually, containers, they probably don't drop them. They're just going to bring them because they're not going to unload them. But trucks are going to be in McKinley Park most of the time. Because that's about what it's going to cost for a 40-footer. Okay, now this is the B-Morgue container program. Okay, the On Playa Burning Man container program, which I was on the list for 5 years, and they finally put us top of the list last year, and I had already gone a totally different direction. And so they were nice enough to offer to keep me on for another whole year. I was like, okay. But so I'm still at the top of the list, actually. But it doesn't work for me. We have like 14 trailers. But a lot of people, this does work because you put all your stuff in there. They take it off at the end of the burn. They bring it back and plop it right where you tell them to plop it. And all your stuff is right there. Take it out. That's the beauty of having a truck or a trailer, too, is that, when that unit, whatever it is brought to your camp, unload it, burn, put it back, bye. That's game changer, right?
Absolutely.
Game changer. Yeah. Okay, but this is what it costs for a Burning Man container. The price is about $32.50, which is about 1,000 high, I think. Okay. Yep. Setup fee is $350 one time. Annual fee is $700. That's not that bad. That's not too bad compared to other numbers I gave you, right? And delivery is $350, round trip delivery to your camp. So it's not that bad. It's a little higher initially because they're charging a little more for the container, but you don't have access to it at all. They bring it and that's it. Okay. Subsequent years, you keep the container. It's your container, by the way. Do whatever you want. Just got to be careful about, you can cut holes wherever you want, but
You're not supposed to cut holes.
and them now? They told me you could. Okay.
Yeah, because I have one and you can't cut holes, you can't paint them, you can't alter anything.
Yeah, they have to be a certain color because that's county. So the next subsequent years is about $10.50. So it's not too bad really once you get it.
When you're done with the program, you sell it back. You get that money
You
back.
sell it to somebody else if you want. You could give it back, but I think everybody pretty much sells to someone else.
But you make your $32.50
Yeah,
back.
that's what I was doing.
Okay. So that's an investment.
They don't seem to be too bad. I thought about last year, like trying to find a buddy that needed one, but I thought that's not really fair,
Because we bought ours from somebody, because the wait list is messed up, just the best case scenario, the wait list is messed up. You can't even get on it, like you can't.
Yeah.
The person that we bought it for tried for 6 months to sell it through the wait list and couldn't sell it, so they posted on the burner classifieds that we bought it from.
Yeah.
But the container people facilitated the sale. It wasn't like some sketchy PayPal that I sent.
Yeah, so they don't mind if you make your money back or whatever. So
But you can't access it.
you have no access to it.
Yeah. When you sell it to somebody, you're gonna have to give it all blank garbage.
Yeah.
Well, when you sell to somebody, they're going to bring it to the current owner's. Well,
It's a
I don't
whole
know.
year between, so he had to empty it the year before.
Yeah.
And then we had to deliver to us. the
Or
next
he
year
could
empty.
deliver, if you wanted it this year, they could bring it to his camp
Right.
full.
They
Maybe
do
with
get-
enough whiskey you could get somebody to move to your camp.
Everything has to be on
For us,
Playa.
we
They
do
will
that.
not let you touch it if it's not on.
Yeah, yeah.
So if you have your own containers, you can't enter it into.
No, not in that program.
Okay.
You can go to the storage yard.
And it appears to me, and I would love if someone knew in more detail, there's been a long wait list for a very long time, and it doesn't seem like the org is interested in like adding more
No.
containers to this program.
They actually added quite a few last year.
They did. They
That's how we got on the
opened
list.
It's a
delivery limit issue.
The delivery limit issue.
You can only deliver so many of them, and heat can only offload so many of them. So you need to grow heat and the delivery.
Yeah. Okay, let's look at the next thing. So that's a B-more. Okay, this is, y'all know what this is. I mean, this is like local storage. I mean, storage units or whatever. Storage units, there was some in Empire, Blackrock mini storage, but that's a long wait list too. I was on that wait list 4 years. I finally got a 10 by 20 and a 5 by 10.
One trick I would say is, like, we used to have a small one and we got the 10 by 20 last year, and what we did is the day we arrived to clean up and go to Burning Man, we asked the guy and said, like, do you have a 10 by 20? Because we signed right away and we just swept them over.
Yeah,
and
at Blackrock.
Yeah, at Blackrock.
Yeah. The other thing, yeah.
And so we got one. So I think it's worse. Like, you can call them, but I think if you are there on the spot, there will always be one that's going to be free just before the burn, because
It can be. It could be. Yeah.
Somebody's going to empty it because they changed.
Well, the other thing I learned is I was on the wait list 4 years. I thought.
Where?
In Blackrock, in
yeah,
Empire.
Yeah.
In Empire. I'll show you a picture of it in a minute. I was on the list for like 4 years, and I was out there. Then I moved my semis there, and I was talking to Sonny. I was like, I've been on the list. She's like, oh, we throw that list away every year. You have to get on the list every year. So I wasn't on the list 4 years. I was on the list 4 years ago. So basically in the area, these are basic costs of what you're going to pay. Reno, probably around $200 for a 10 by 20. Fernley's a little bit cheaper, $150. And Fernley, they also have, I can't remember if I made a slide on that. They also have our car storage. They're full though. It's PSP storage in Fernley. And in Empire, she's a little bit cheaper, but she doesn't have many units, like 110 for a 10 by 20. Okay, so what's next? Okay, so this is, you see to the right, that's Playa, right? Basically. So there's Gerlach, right? Empire's down here, just before you get to Gerlach, right? You know where the store is. When you get to the store, you'll see on the left some storage units and then 3 big lots where there's all kinds of trailers and stuff. So that's where it is in Empire. That's just Gerlach. There's no storage in Gerlach. Then Stanley Ranch is out there where that other red dot is. That's about 11 miles north of Gerlach. And she mostly just does small stuff. We're trying to help her change. Her husband just died, so I'm trying to help her. Really nice place out there and a really nice lady. But her road is not really set up for big trailers yet, But our cars, smaller stuff, she's all about it. And I'll show you her place in a second. Go ahead. Okay, this is a Google view of Blackrock. You'll see on the right is Sonny and Gay's house there. During burn time, there'll be millions of trailers and stuff on the right there by their house. But you'll see the 3 lots there. Robert says 447, that's the storage. The next one is where they put the smaller trailers. The next one is where they put bigger trailers, and then the next one is their daughter, Tammy's lot. She does have some space for semis right now. Sonny's full for semis right now, but smaller stuff she does have space for. Okay.
What was cost? Did you say to the store?
40.
40
For either for a 50-foot trailer or a 10-foot 6 by 10, doesn't matter. Yeah, I mean, I'm paying $50 a month for a freaking 10-foot R car, and I'm paying $50 a month for a 53-foot semi. 40 actually. It's $50 a month for staging. It's $50 for staging. If you want to take your stuff there and stage it, then it's.
I do not.
No, but I mean, anybody that does, they do that. Okay, next. This is Stanley Ranch. So her storage is a little off to the right, but she has a really nice place. It's off the grid. It's all run by water pressure from a well way up on the mountain. She has a really nice swimming hole, and like she'll let you camp there, for a few days before the burn if you need to stage or move your stuff in and out.
Can we duck out there during the burn, dip in the swimming pool?
Yeah. She's cool. Yeah, she's crazy. She's a total nutcase. I mean, in a good way. In a good way. Okay.
Kind of like the rest of us.
Yeah. She's perfect. Yeah, she's really cool. She's a nut, but that's a really nice swimming hole right there. Really nice. Okay, next. Now this is Pyramid Lake Storage. You'll see like where it says Sutcliffe right there, and that red dot. That's Pyramid Way, the road going to Sparks. Okay, so if you went down like where that if you went down to the right from that, that comes into Nixon right there, and then you would turn left to go up to Gerlach. So it's a little further. It's like 40 miles further away. Not to Gerlach.
If you go from
No, yeah, from Sparks, you're 15 minutes from Home Depot. Yeah. No, it's great for that. Because like if you want to work on stuff at George's, which is Pyramid Lake Storage, this is on the reservation, by the way. So he has, next, you'll see, oh no, there's his place. So he has some gated lots, and he has power, and he had a little store there, but it's not open anymore.
Is that next to the horse motel?
No, it's further out than that.
And you said
It's
you
about
can-
it's about 6 miles past there.
You can work on stuff there?
Yeah, I mean, last year in June we went there and we worked for a week, and I gave him $150. He was happy. He gave us power and water and stuff. Yeah. Yep. And he's got a little tractor and stuff. He's going to make some more lots. He's a really nice guy. He actually heads up he's in charge for the tribe of all the fishing guides on the lake. So, but that's a good place because you're only literally 15 minutes from Home Depot and Walmart.
And
So if you want to work
just
on
for
stuff.
trailer storage, or is it
He's not doing semis anymore.
okay? So then, what type of storage is this?
Anything else, pretty much.
Okay.
Yeah.
But no crane, right? So 40 foot.
No, he doesn't have a crane. No, he wouldn't. He probably wouldn't do containers there.
And this isn't like a 10 by 20
No, this is just
garage.
open storage.
Open storage, yeah.
Yeah, just lot storage, like parking our car, park a trailer. Yeah, yeah.
Can you do 20 footers?
He might, but we had a bunch of semis out there. He got kind of bad taste. It wasn't me, but he got kind of bad taste in his mouth about having semis out there. For one thing, he can't move them.
Yeah.
So if anything were to happen, he can't move them, and he worries about that, you know. And so,
What was the bad experience? What goes with this? Not interesting.
nah. Somebody had a bunch of stuff there and didn't pay. Somebody had a bunch of stuff there and didn't pay the bills. Yeah. But it's mostly they're so big. You know, 50-foot trailer. He's gonna make the same as a 10-foot R car. So he may change his mind, but he didn't have the space locked anyway. You know, so that's George Molino, and I can give you his number, you know, if you want. Okay, what is next? I can't remember. Oh, that's it. Okay, so that's basically local storage, and you were asking about trucking. Most people are going to quote you either $125 an hour or somewhere between $2.75 and $3.25 a mile. I don't know what you're paying, but maybe a little less than that. Like all the way from, we sent a truck from North Carolina, Nashville to Playa last year, and it was about 2.25. That's quite a ways, you know. So most people, the OSS guys, are going to quote you around $2.75 to $3.25 a mile. But that doesn't really count the fact that it's only 20 miles, so they're not going to do it for, you know, $60. They got to unhook it and they got to pay all those fees, and it's quite expensive, the fees, to be an OSS vendor too.
So what was the cost for the trailer from what they came from?
From Chicago?
Yeah.
I'll go
Well,
through
he's
my-
going to go.
yeah.
He's doing a whole
Yeah,
long
yeah.
distance. Yeah.
Is it? Should we switch gears now?
If anybody, unless there's whatever questions on local.
You said that one was not locked. I was gonna ask, are there any like break-in problems in any of these, or all this?
His wife is like tribal boss or whatever.
Live there. And then
Yeah, he lives right there in that house. Yeah, yeah.
I don't think anyone wants to steal your Burning Man stuff.
It's broken anyway.
Oh, let me address one other thing. So when you're going this way, the like at Blackrock and here, when your stuff is on the storage place, it's insured by the storage place. And if you're using a pro trucker, your stuff is insured by the trucker. So you don't really need to carry like contents insurance on your stuff when you're doing it this way, basically, because it's covered by the lot and it's covered by the trucker. So that's an important factor. Yeah.
What he's saying is true, but you should take pictures of all of it, because when you say, hey, my $20,000 sound system was stolen, the insurance company will want to know proof
Yeah.
that it was actually there.
Right.
So keep track of everything.
Any other questions on local stuff?
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
Wait, one here.
So, as somebody who owns like 2 shipping containers, and we've contracted with different folks. And one of the things I've struggled with not being local is knowing who's taking new business and what's changed. Because every year that we've stored something, someone's decided they're not into storing certain kinds of things now, and others, and lay over the OSS changing landscape. I think it'd be hugely helpful if either we as TCOs crowdsource, like who's taking new storage and where, the vendors that are actually doing different kinds of equipment, and who's taking business, because there's, I think I called like 40 people last
Yeah.
year in a
Well, you know, there's a new team. There's a new. Vic and me are both on the new camp development support team, and the camp development support team is a team on the Borg org chart, actually even with DPW, placement, gate, or whatever. So we're a new team, only a few months, but Vic and I are both on the council, which is like the board of directors of that team. And this is going to be a team for theme camps that we're going to be able to organize what I hope is a lot more communication within theme camps and also between theme camps and the org, because now we're just sending stuff to placement. And I've waited I love my placers, but I've waited 6 months before for answers, and the answer was, I don't know, let me send that off to you. You know? And pretty important questions, you know.
And we just started a new Facebook group last night. There was a camper out of Florida. Started up with, yes, this is what we need. So I announced it on the Burning Man TCO's Facebook group. It's called
Transportation specific.
It's transportation
That's
and
good.
storage specific.
That's great.
Facebook group.
So yeah, we could do it that way, and I think that part of what I think the CDS will help us with as TCOs is that none of us understand, most of us don't understand OSS.
Yeah.
We say we need a truck or we need water, so that's OSS. Well, OSS is nothing but the team at Burning Man that organizes all those vendors. And because of the permitting process, since they don't know if they get the permit till like July, then they can't tell you exactly which vendors are actually licensed until July. So it's a real mess, you know.
Yeah, it screwed us over last year.
Yeah.
People really came together to help, but I think it's an information. Like people who aren't pro truckers and don't have this experience,
Yeah, well,
it's hard for us to even talk to the vendors.
There's another sub-team in the CDS for camp networking, and so they're going to be trying to organize all these different TCO groups and stuff. And like, you know, there's where's Ron? Is Ron here? Anyway, there's the old TCO group, which is like 6,000 people, and then I threw a wrench in that shit, and I made a new TCO group, which I want y'all to join, which is only like top 1 or 2 people in each camp, you know, mayors and TCOs only. So that we'll have a lot smaller discussion group that we can come to some consensus-based agreements on what we want to see, like from the CDS or org or OSS or whatever. So I think the network team would be good for that, to have like help facilitate more groups like that where you can go in and say, man, I'm trying to, like if you go in the old TCO group and ask a question like that, but
Well, you get snarked down.
right. And so on the new group, it's like more serious stuff, you know, so.
I have a question. Does the whole collective here think that OSS or the board is trying to cut back on the shipping options? No.
So yesterday, in one of the sessions, the Playground, I believe this is her name, her Playa name, clarified that in the start of 2018, they put a cap across all OSS. At some point midway through, and it wasn't clear when, they actually lifted that cap on all OSS other than housing. And like literally like yesterday or 2 days ago, Marion sent some email to all OSS vendors stating that the whole 2019 policy is that housing vendors are still capped. Everyone else is allowed to expand, new vendors, and specifically she was like, anyone know of like a fuel vendor? We'd love to have a third fuel vendor. Anyone know like trucking? We'd love to have more trucking. Like gray water, someone's like, oh, we should have more gray water. She's like, we'd love them. Like everyone asked around. So it's sort of open season other than housing.
Well, just to be clear, it's open season, but there is like 3 or 4 days left for them
to apply for the SRP.
So
Yeah.
3 or 4
Yeah.
days, so it's what?
there's almost no time to be a new OSS vendor right now.
Could I ask a point, because Fixer, just as us as a community, and I really agree with you, having a layer for theme camps to really coordinate this year, what's happened has happened, but now to really look at our leadership in each of our sectors, this coordination of the vendors being open this year with a direct request of how we can really improve it, just as an area for us to focus and crystallize this.
Yeah,
as a
I mean, it's a little
community
off topic, but
to
I
work
think
with the
that
CDS.
understand that the CDS is y'all's team,
Yeah.
basically, to interface with the board. So if you have a proposal or whatever, pitch it to one of us on the council, and we'll try to do a little footwork and see if it's even possible at all. You know,
Could I add one, Blair, what I mean, instead of, like, one, we should all submit requests, we should do that, but I think in these groups, can we just bring some structure? What are the top priorities that we want to start working with? Who has suggestions? And then really using the leadership in the CDS, the fact that you're even there to hold this.
I'm hoping that the new TCO more focused group can do that kind of stuff.
Exactly.
Because it's not a group like, should I use 1/2-inch EMT or 3/4
exactly.
Fuck. You know, this is like, oh, how do I interface? How do I find storage? You know, so let's move on to Drew's. But
So sort of a double check question. Going to a smaller camp this year, it sounds like a good option for us would be like a diesel box truck that we store at one of these local places. Is that like in terms of the smaller options that is
yeah, same pricing. Yeah.
Nothing seems crazy about that.
No, not at all.
The acquisition's going to be more.
This is cheaper. It costs you a little bit more, but then you don't have to pay to move it. You can move it.
Right.
And you can also pull a trailer for your buddy or whatever, maybe. So.
I guess you just have to get a driver there. Like,
Not for that. That's just a plain old U-Haul. 20-foot U-Haul, gas, not diesel. I would suggest.
Rented a box truck for you.
Yeah, anybody can drive that.
If it's under what 25,000 pounds.
Yeah.
Right, they're not gonna weigh. I've definitely driven vehicles considerably more than 25,000 pounds and don't have a class A.
Yeah. Okay, well let's move on to Drew because he's going to be more
There's
long
gonna be-
distance.
There's going to be a lot of overlap. So let's maybe just go to the next slide. So, real quick summary of the journey I've been on. My first burn, 2008. I was given a ticket last minute. I went to the ride board, and 3 people drove from Chicago to the burn in a Prius. The next year, I drove out a beloved family conversion van that was already on its last legs, and the Playa was really kind of the nail in the coffin. Then did, I think, what a lot of other people have done, started renting box trucks. That yellow box truck, the transmission blew out on the way home in Wyoming. It was like maybe 6 or 8 weeks until all the stuff finally came back to Chicago. When we were doing box trucks, that bottom middle photo, we would actually, before we put a single thing, we would build a false floor and shelving. We would put all of our shade conduit in the false floor. We would stack stuff up in the shelves. And then, of course, have to undo all of that and put stuff back into storage. We, got larger and larger and larger. And so I think someone asked, the largest vehicle that you're allowed to drive without a CDL, a professional driver's license, is a 26-foot straight van box truck. And that is a crazy loophole. That is a very, very large piece of equipment. It has semi-wheels, it has air brakes, it is a semi-truck. I do not feel great that I'm allowed to rent that.
Or anyone.
And those are bikes in the back.
So,
those are bikes in the back.
Yeah, and we'll get to that. In the very back, you'll see skinny cardboard boxes. Each one of those is a bike. Michelle here, my fiance and assistant, that's her in the bottom right. In that 26 and co-lead, yes. Michelle wears a lot of hats. Fun fact, if you drive from Chicago to Blackrock and back, and you do that 7 times, like I did, it is slightly longer than the circumference of the entire Earth. Except you spend most of your time in Nebraska, which is the most boring place on Earth. So, next slide. Along this road, established a camp that this year will be in its 10th year. Our infrastructure is Chicago-based. Michelle and I are Chicago-based. of our camp this past year, 63% of 80 people took the Burner Express bus. We come from 5 continents. There's this quick sort of breakdown. Like, we do not have a lot of veterans from California or Nevada. So this makes our logistical storage challenges like especially acute. And we have a pretty healthy number of virgins every year. It's a lot of work, but that's part of our culture, what we sort of give back. So we decided we needed to go pro, and this is our shipping and storage model. For actual transport, we pay a professional driver who drags a semi-trailer, and we'll get it. There's tons of pictures and details on that. But in that semi-trailer, very roughly about half of that trailer is our own camp infrastructure, and the other half of that trailer is like a regional shipping program that generates revenue and brings stuff to the Playa of people not in our camp. During the off season, that trailer is about half empty, but the camp's infrastructure stays in there, and we actually, and this is kind of crucial, we keep it about an hour outside of Chicago, where maybe land isn't like quite as cheap as like Empire, Nevada, but our storage costs are way lower than if we try to do it like within the city limits or nearby.
It prevents us from unloading and loading in a storage unit. So
Yeah.
it stays on the trailer and we don't have to move it again.
Right.
You can
One
mostly-
time.
I mean, you touch it a lot, but like.
Yeah. So next slide. This is the trailer we bought. It's actually a 48-foot semi-trailer, and this style of trailer is what's called a moving van.
That's what you want.
Yeah, that's
And a million thanks and praise to a guy named Larry Malik, who nowadays operates one of the OSS trucking companies called Nevada Sage. Someone, I can't remember who it was, that connected me with Larry in this very early on in this process. Larry's been burning for years. He's hauled many, many trailers, and he said, hey, what you really want is you want one of these. You can see there's a lot of doors, 5 sets of doors in the main compartment. What's a little bit harder to see is that underneath the main deck, there are these things called belly boxes that are about 18 inches tall, 16 feet long, and 8 feet wide. And so all that conduit that we used to put into a false floor just goes so easy down there. All of our Playa Tech bike racks, and we have bike racks for like 80 bikes. Boom, 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 boom. Slides in, packed really nice.
I'm seeing a lot of light bulbs going on.
Yeah.
I'm seeing a lot of drool coming out of people's mouths.
How hard is it to stick those belly boxes on an already? I have a 45-foot trailer that does not have those, and I desire them.
That's a really good question. It's definitely like a pretty specialized build out.
There's different kind of trailers like this too. Like this one has the belly boxes on bottom. Some moving vans actually come lower, and so even the deck is even.
So this is a partial drop deck.
Right.
And there's a whole zoo of now. Fixer did a good job of putting up some like sort of purchase costs. These are going to be more expensive. So, this specific
and a lot harder
trailer
to find.
was we bought it used. It was just shy of $10,000, but in very good condition. Something that you'll see more in subsequent photos, but all of these silver stripes on the inside is E-Track, and we'll get to that. So maybe next slide.
Well, into the drop deck, this is how you can see that it's a drop deck. So it goes like below the.
Yeah, that's worth pointing out.
That's how much
because,
lower it is.
like a standard dry van, you see these red and white stripes.
Yeah.
A standard dry van will be, this height all the way across. These are like slightly smaller wheels, and you gain like a foot, which is actually I don't want to do the math right now, but that's a lot of volume that you add by adding that foot. And so the moving companies love to like maximize every last square foot,
Does
cubic
it change
foot.
the weight that can be hauled in it?
Essentially, no.
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 It's just more space.
How much was Trudy? I missed it.
Just shy of 10,000. The way that we handled that as a camp is a small number of campers gave the camp like 0 interest loans. Hey, I can loan you $1,000 for 1 year. Hey, I can loan the camp $3,000 for 2 years. And actually, knock on wood, we bought this in 2015. In 2019, everyone will be paid back, and this will be owned by the camp. I should also say, and we can go into this if people are interested, before we did this, we created an LLC to put the camp under. The tiniest amount of liability protection so that it's not in someone's name. I think also the company that we bought it from, who specializes in this sort of thing, would probably have been unwilling or unable to sell to an individual, whereas an LLC was like, oh yeah, we have the paperwork for that, what's your tax ID, etc.
It keeps you from fucking over one particular person for taxes too.
Yeah.
Because then that looks like a whole bunch of revenue that somebody just made.
Right.
And all the camp dues come into one person and they buy everything from the camp.
That currently still is the case because it's a sole proprietor LLC, but potentially, yes, you can structure things differently.
Just particularly with the risk too, the liability is real. Nothing goes wrong, fine, but if something goes wrong, it becomes real. And also, an LLC cleans up the banking solution if it's not someone's money or
Keeps it
account.
separate.
You get a little entity, and there's many advantages, but the liability is a
Yeah. We also, good point, opened a separate business banking account through which all camp finances flow. Let's go to the next slide. Tricking out Trudy.
Yes. That looks dope.
This is where it gets more fun. Bottom right, that's an interior view of those belly boxes. Upper right, those are all bicycles. We really like these Amtrak bike boxes. You can pretty much go to any like medium or large size Amtrak train station in the United States, and for $15 they'll sell you one of these giant cardboard boxes. The wheels of the bike stay on. You turn or remove the handlebars and maybe remove the pedals, zip tie them to the frame so they don't get lost. You just roll that right into the box. It makes it super easy to carry bikes, to shuffle them, to sort them. In theory, you rely on your campers to you get your bike in this box and tape it up and label it, and then we'll take care of it from there. It kind of makes a nice delineation of responsibility.
By the way, your closest local large Amtrak station is Jack London Square in Oakland.
Awesome. Bottom left, so there's that E-track, and that kind of gold color is a fitting that's made. You just have a 2x4, sit right in it. Screw holes are already there. Really pretty quickly, in a day basically, built out on the upper left and sort of in the middle, custom shelving that is the exact right size for the bins that we use to store our camp infrastructure. There's still a lot of work in terms of, and we're getting to that point of okay, what goes in this bin? Bin C7 comes out on this day and goes back on this day, and the pots need to be cleaned before you put it back, etc. That's the general idea.
So you look a little unbelieving here.
And to go back to that top right, we built that shelf, if it's not obvious, to the exact right height that we needed to fit 2 layers of bike boxes.
Water in there? Do you want to talk about your water tanks?
So in waters, we've changed our water system a couple times. When we were doing box trucks, we would drive. We have these nesting water barrels. We would drive them out empty. In maybe Salt Lake City or a little further, we would pull up next to a Walmart garden center and sneak the hose through the fence. What we've done the last couple of years is take empty barrels in the semi-trailer to the Playa. Other people in our camp would take a box truck up from California, unload that box truck, take all the empty barrels, drive to the fire hydrant in Gerlach, fill up literally 1,000 gallons of water, and come back. So that was the water run that would happen maybe Friday of early man. We're very likely this year going to switch to using an OSS potable water provider.
You're never going to go back.
Yes.
Miko's
Yeah.
pretty solid.
Yeah, Miko's amazing.
Let's go to the next slide.
For a couple days late.
So
Right,
we,
Miko better.
at the same time,
Miko better.
we realized, and we'll get to the numbers on this, it costs a lot of money to pay a driver to take this thing to and from Chicago. And we actually didn't need an entire 48-foot semi-truck. We really only filled like half of it. So at the same time, we also started a regional shipping program, now called Chicargo, now in its 5th year.
Which store does that those bumblebees come from?
Yeah, so possibly the biggest like headache ulcer of this whole process is the many different companies that make the yellow and black totes that we're all familiar with. They look so similar, but they don't actually stack and nest. They look so similar and heavy duty, but like some of them are made with like very low quality thin plastic, and they crack if you stack them more than like too high. I think I forgot to put in a picture, but we use these bins and we stack them literally to the ceiling. So approximately the front half of the semi-trailer when we go to Playa is stacked extremely efficiently. Like within like a half an inch of the roof, we get these things stacked. So in 2019, we did 160 bins, 42 irregular items that we sort of charge on a like measure the 3 dimensions, round up, multiply it by $12 a square foot. We'll take your stuff. Cubic foot. Thank you. I keep making that mistake.
It's an expensive mistake.
That program last year grossed just under $12,000. We also have it be like sort of a fundraiser. So we donated about $1,200 to the Chicago Regional Nonprofit Org. They love to just like get a PayPal deposit once a year.
Me too.
As do I.
Yeah. The way that we run this, we are like 100% electronic. Jot form is a little bit like Google Forms, but it accepts payments. So we have just an online form, any credit card, any debit card. Like we do not accept PayPal, we do not accept whatever. But if you have anything in your pocket with 16 digits on it, you can reserve your bins or your regular items.
What's the transaction cost?
Pardon me?
What's the transaction cost?
So, Jot form is the form. The payment processor we use is Stripe. And Stripe is 30 cents plus 2.9%. I think that's like kind of average standard. Yeah.
Why do you not take PayPal?
So then Stripe, the advantage is that, it is just like direct deposit into our business banking account, like no shenanigans. The whole like PayPal balance thing, the like fees, not fees, like are you a business, are you not a business? We really, I think, opted for like the most universal, like any card in your pocket that covers a lot. Even people's like, hippie credit unions have like some Visa enabled debit card, like that'll work, it'll work.
Or you can get a PayPal debit card.
There you go. Yeah. If someone, is very, well, let's not go there. Anyway, next slide.
Hold on, wait, another question?
Oh yeah.
Do you have any issues with international folks with using that payment situation?
No.
But they were going to be in Chicago, so.
Well, yeah, but you might have campers that are coming from like London or wherever.
Fair enough. Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah.
And we're actually shipping our camp stuff uses different boxes, and we're switching them to these boxes so that it can stack, and we don't need to worry about like getting them in the shelves before we start stacking this. So
Right.
everyone will be using these
And
yellow boxes.
just as a quick heads up, we got 15 minutes left in the session before lunch. So.
What was the correct supplier of the yellow?
So the ones that we prefer, the manufacturer is Centrex, but even Centrex, those bastards, they changed their molds recently. So currently, the only place to get the bins, and I'm this close to just like putting in an order for like 1,000 of them and stockpiling them, is Lowe's. So a Centrex bin from Lowe's, 27 gallon. What's that?
Quality seems to have gone down recently. Buying just the lids.
Yes.
Because they crack and they break every year.
No, but if you go in there and say, I got 10 boxes that day and only got 9 lids.
No.
10 trucks will sell you the lens.
I've gotten extra lids every time.
Yeah.
And
You might could order
they
them.
don't check the lids.
Let's go to the next slide. So
I like to hear.
Yeah, just like, count up the boxes, and then I got my lids like over here, so they're not in the same spot, but just trust me. And then,
here are our sort of combined financials from 2018.
Yeah, we can share.
Yeah, I'm on it.
I think you're good, yeah.
A lot of this stuff was sort of covered. So, Fixer mentioned this BLM OSS permit that our price to the Empire to BRC round trip pretty much within the range that he offered, or mentioned, I should say. Storage, we pay $100 a month in that place about an hour outside of Wisconsin. This is sort of critical. The place that we decided to store it is an actual trailer repair facility. They do 3 things for us, which is really nice. They put air in the tires, they do an inspection, and they give it a, what is it? It's like DOT or Federal Highway something or other. It costs like $75, but you do need one of those every year. They make any repairs that we need. So like last year, because our trailer does go 4,000 miles round trip, it needs like decent tires. One of them was like getting close to balding. They replaced it with another used tire. It cost us, $400 parts and labor. They will also do the sort of delivery to Chicago, where every year we do a certain amount of reconfiguration, rejiggering. Hey, we're not going to bring the water barrels this year. Let's install more shelves or move whatever so that we can like really maximize the space for Chicago or whatever else we might be doing or bringing that year. And so you can see, for a solution that stores our stuff year round and brings it to the Playa safely, reliably, etc., our annual cost for that is, a little under $3,000, which is pretty great.
That's good.
And that's, like the majority of, what our camp sort of needs from our camp dues.
Does Chicago, is there a waiting list to get on the truck, or are you looking for more people? What's the supply and demand?
So Chicago, every year we start accepting, orders, and we aim for like mid-May because, summer people are kind of distracted and crazy. We have filled up every year, but we really only fill up in like early August. So right now, like it's a nice sort of match of supply and demand. It has been interesting that we've really had to like sort of get the word out within the Chicago community. I'm not sure if other regional communities are like this, but Chicago has a lot of kind of like isolated pockets of burners that aren't super aware of what everyone else is doing. So it's been a lot of like going to monthly happy hours and like making a Facebook page and like tell your friends, like tell your friends again. Hey, you look like a burner. Do you know about this thing that I run? Like you don't. You've been going for 10 years. Like oh. But let's go to the next slide.
One thing about that I want to say is that you notice that he's broken out the Empire to Playa and the Chicago to Empire. That's because typically it would take a different provider, but also even if you used an OSS transport guy that took it all the way from Chicago to the Playa, they're going to have to drop it pretty much in Empire because they need to charge it differently because they got to pay a percentage of the fee for the whole.
I'm so glad you reminded me of this. Yes.
So they got to pay a percentage of 3% to the BLM for the $11,000 fee, or they can pay 3% of the $890.
Yeah.
So that's one of the reasons. Staging.
If we just did this, if we had one driver go from Chicago,
Playa,
through the gate to our camp, that driver would have to pay BLM 10% of this. By dropping it and having another driver do the last mile,
I think it's 3%.
3%? Thank you. 3% of this versus 3% of this.
Plus it's giant hassle. They have to buy an $800 ticket at the gate, they go drop the stuff, then they come back, they get a refund for that.
So, just so you know, the other regionals, that DC, Boston, New York, and Austin, they do not have to do any of that money because the org takes that. So talk to Peter Duran. He's a meta regional out of Boston.
They don't have to do what?
They don't
Only
have to
through the
pay,
12-mile entrance do you pay
and they
3%.
also don't have to go through the front gate. They get to go through the
Well,
back gate.
so this, I mean,
As a regional,
Interesting.
yeah, that's worth looking into. But another thing I should really sort of briefly touch on, one thing that we thought and talked a lot about and did research is like a semi-trailer versus a shipping container. And I know that a lot of those East Coast shipping programs use shipping containers and they put them on rail.
Yep. Which has been cheaper, and rail is now more expensive, so they're not going to do rail this year. So
Interesting. The other sort of concerns that we had about rail is there's still all the same applicable complications of getting a big container. You know, in the rail yard, they have all that equipment to get it on and off, but it's still harder to get it to a specific place. There's also this kind of issue with the U.S. rail network being kind of like brittle or like subject to like shocks and choke points and that sort of thing. So like even if there was like a longshoreman's strike in LA, that could delay the delivery of our overseas shipping container, even though we're not going anywhere near LA because things kind of get backed up. And so, you know, Burning Man aside, the like logistics industry uses rail for things that are like heavy, cheap, and have little to no like requirement they arrive on time. Whereas like trucking being sort of more like flexible and liquid and okay, your tractor breaks down anywhere, you know, within 50 miles of an interstate in Chicago, in the United States, there's going to be another tractor that can, you know, pick it up for like a little extra cost and you're still, you know, on the move.
There's also some talk that, I can't remember the company, ConAgra maybe, is tired of dealing with Burning Man, and a lot of the stuff that comes in by rail, even for B-Morg, there's talk about, they've talked about just quitting the OSS completely.
That's interesting. So, you know,
maybe you're going to talk about it, but have you had any trouble? I know a lot of people that do regional, like containers and stuff, nightmare of getting people to come pick up their stuff, getting people to loading it in, not showing up on time, blah, blah, blah. Do you have issues with that?
So, for Shy Cargo, you mean?
Mm-hmm.
Knock on wood, we are kind of hard asses about it. You know, drop off is like, it's actually very funny. A super wise burner told me, he's like, Drew, you know, why do you have an 8-hour window for drop off? Because burners are either going to be the first half hour or the last half hour. And I was like, damn, and so we shortened it to like 4 hours.
45 minutes.
You really could. Anyway, we're super strict about that. We're super strict about like, you have to have the right bin. You have to have a lock on your bin. We have like labels for every bin. We weigh them so that they're, you know, heavier to lighter, which helps with stability, but also, you know, the people, our camp volunteers who are like stacking all these things.
They don't pick up a 100-pound one and they think it's a 30.
We have limits, you know, yeah, like 80 pounds is our limit for a bin, and we check that with a digital scale when they drop it off. One other thing I wanted to say about.
I mean, there's different types of drop-offs too, right? There's drop-offs in Chicago, so you've got to like show up that day. We do like a board, a message board that if you can't drop it off,
Yeah.
post here, and maybe someone else will be able to.
Don't tell me your sob story. Put it in a Google Doc where someone else can read it, and then you two figure it out.
Yeah. We have a trailer that someone has built, like a bike trailer or like a walking trailer on Playa that you can like bring your bin to your camp and come back.
Yeah.
And we're very strict about drop off.
Yeah.
Did you say you're not doing bikes
Playa,
anymore?
that you've got to drop it off before a certain time.
5 minutes.
Yeah.
5 minutes.
Super important pieces here. You know, we have room to reduce our transport costs. We're always asking around, hey, you know, does anyone know? And the real key word here is owner operators. You need like special permitting and a license just to drive a tractor anywhere in the United States, and it's a pretty high bar. But there are a good number of like small business owners. It's like, one person owns a truck. Team drivers, it's like a couple that team drive and they own a truck and they have an LLC. Something that is very new but very, very interesting is these sort of like digital brokers. To find someone to move our trailer was like getting in a time machine to the 70s, because it's all like gravel voiced, dispatchers and fax machines. No one does email, no one texts. I make an appointment, I'm paying like, $5,000, and I give them a 6-hour window. Driver shows up 2 hours late, isn't answering the call, even after they pick it up, not answering, phone calls. It got to the point where I took an old cell phone and wired it to a car battery so I could GPS track my own trailer. It sounds a lot like the taxi industry used to be. And so there's now these like tech people that are like, let's fix this.
Flexport.
Drivers will have an app in their phone. Drivers will be able to like scroll and pick, say, oh, hey, I want to do this, I want to do that. Right before this session, I don't know if this person was here, was asking like, hey, you're like, hey, I got a guy who will take my trailer from San Diego to Reno, but he's going to charge me to drive empty on the way there from Reno to San Diego. That driver should really consider downloading, these are all like apps. So Convoy, Uber Freight, Transfix. He can find, the day before some random thing that will pay him to come down. He'll drop that off, then he'll get yours. It's a good way to like sort of fill in those gaps. And so I will honestly be looking at these options instead of the old school phone brokers to find someone to take my trailer.
I would assume the driver is already doing it, but he's double charging you anyway.
Oh, great.
Well, perhaps.
Probably racking
perhaps.
This guy's actually, he's a burner, so I hope that's not the case. Now, what is your opinion on like U-Ship?
I had a negative experience with U-Ship because I had to do some LTL freight of moving bikes one way. I don't think it was so much U-Ship's fault, but the LTL carrier that U-Ship connected me with was pretty shitty. U-Ship's a little more Craigslist of shipping. These guys are a little more like Amazon of shipping in terms of, the sort of level of service, the technology, etc.
You could also talk to some of the OSS transport guys, give recommendations from them.
Yes.
Because they're going to know people that, this probably what you do with Larry, I suspect. Initially, maybe.
Weirdly though, Larry was not super helpful, and that a lot of it's very regional.
Right.
Hey Larry, I got to go from Sacramento. He'd be like, oh, I know 20 guys in Sacramento. Chicago, he's like, I don't know.
So it's 1 o'clock.
So one more question. It looks like you paid about $2.25 a mile.
Yes.
Okay.
So
a little
last
closer.
burning questions or last points from the presenters?
How do you exchange money?
For Shy Cargo?
No, I already know that. I meant to pay off the driver.
Oh, that's a very like B2B. They issue invoices. We mail them a check via the bank. Like
another old school thing.
Pretty old school.
Okay.
Yeah, most of the time.
Good question.
Or,
Yeah.
Cash for in terms of the like Empire to BRC.
Yeah.
And the storage is like writing checks too. It's not a lot of
Invoicing checks. Yeah.
Do you guys have lists that you might release of all the like resources for storage that you know about?
Yeah, we're gonna put stuff together and probably share it in that Facebook group. The transportation one, you think?
And also you're going to send me a Google Doc link, and I'll put it in the Potable for this session.
Great.
Cool.
I've been telling them that every time we've talked since.
Oh yeah, so here's that other
haven't
stuff.
had a yes yet.
So anyway, contact info, links. But it'll also be in the Potable.
All right.
Thanks everyone.
Thanks.
Great job.
Thanks, Trixie. Thanks, Drew. Woo-hoo.